Hello, everyone. This week, we are in, week 3. So, we're going to be talking about rhetorical thinking in situations, and we're also going to be talking about the writing process. This says that you have a handout on grammar due by 11:59 this Saturday, September 12th, via email. So, that's that grammar packet that I sent out for week 2. It's this one right here. It's due by 11:59 September 12th via email. Okay. So in week 3, we also have some homework. It's a discussion board post. Now, for those of you in English 63W, which is just Comp 1, this is extra credit. So you don't have to do this unless you just want to. For those of you in ENGL 16A and 37A or Comp 1 with review, this is your homework for the Comp review portion of class. Okay, so the homework is to write a short paragraph, at least 5 sentences about what rhetoric is and what it means to write and think rhetorically. Give me an example of you using rhetoric in your everyday life. So this is also due by 11:59 p.m. Saturday, September 12th. And it is a discussion board posting. So you just click on that and you click create thread and you're able to name it and then type your response here and then hit submit in this bottom right hand corner down here. So you probably can't answer that question yet. You're like, I don't know what rhetoric is. I don't know how to think and write rhetorically. I have no idea. But that's a good thing because that's what we're going to talk about today. So hopefully this is going to be a fairly short video, but we'll see. So the first thing we're talking about is rhetorical thinking. So this would be chapters 1 and 2 in your in the old textbook. So there's going to be some page numbers in here that you don't even need to worry about. I cover everything in the chapter in here. So don't worry about reading anything. I didn't scan anything for you to read. We don't have to worry about it this week. So there is a quote by Wayne Booth that says the only real alternative to war is rhetoric. So that makes us wonder what exactly rhetoric is. This quote is really similar to, y'all, by the way, I'm drinking this pumpkin cream cold brew from Starbucks. Let me tell you, it's awesome. If you like pumpkin, you like strong coffee, go by Starbucks, get you a pumpkin cream cold brew. It's delicious. Anyway, so this saying is really similar to the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. Okay, so what Wayne Booth is saying here is that using words and language in a, quote, careful, persistent, and ethical way, end quote, is the best way to stop violence and war. So that's what rhetoric is at its core. It's using language. So where do we see examples of using language in that way? Well, in your book, it gives the example of protesters during the Black Lives Matter marches, where protesters were speaking out against the killings of Eric Garner and Michael Brown. In the textbook, there was a woman who had, let me see if I can find it. This was it. So she's got this sign that says there comes a time when silence is betrayal. So she's saying, like, we have to use our words and our language in order to help people, to help those who are more oppressed, less fortunate than we are. That's what she's saying. She's like, we have to use our words, and that's what rhetoric is using your words to make a difference. So how do you go about doing this? Well, you learn to think and act act rhetorically, that is, by developing habits of mind that begin with listening and searching for understanding before you decide what you yourself think, and by thinking hard about your own beliefs before trying to persuade others to listen and act on what you say. So basically, what this means is that you have to think before you speak. Okay? So it says, see page 7 in your textbook for parlor metaphor. What the parlor metaphor is that to write or respond rhetorically, you have to envision that you have come to a parlor. If you don't know what a parlor is, it's a fancy thing. Back in the old days, it was like everybody's living room. It's where they would meet people and entertain them, for tea and whatnot. Or pumpkin cream cold brews. But you imagine that you've come late to this party, okay? And everybody at this party is talking about something, and they're fired up about it, y'all. They're fired up. They're arguing about it. You don't know what the heck's going on. You're 20 minutes late. You don't know what's happening. You missed the beginning of this conversation. But everybody's pissed off, and they're all like going at each other, okay? So what do? Well, you sit there for a minute. You sip on your Coke or your coffee or your beer or whatever it is that you have. You sit there and you listen to what everybody's saying. And once you've got an idea about what the argument is and you've got an idea about what's going on, then you jump into the conversation. That's the parlor metaphor. That's what it means to think and respond rhetorically. It means that you listen before you begin trying to persuade people to think and believe the way you do, because that's what communication is about, right? We all want everybody to think and believe the way we do. We want this nice utopia, okay? It's not going to happen, but that's what we want. We want people to agree with us all the time. So before we try to persuade people to agree with us, we have to listen to what they're saying. We can't just say, you don't know what you're talking about, shut up. You can't say that. You have to listen to what their argument is, okay? You have to listen to understand, not to reply. So you have to listen with the idea that you're trying to understand where they're coming from and what they're saying. What is their argument, okay? You have to listen first. And then once you've listened, you have to decide, what do you think? And why do you think that? Usually this is the tough part. Usually we know already what we think about issues like gay marriage or fake news, but sometimes it's hard to say why we think that. We have to think about why we think and believe one way in order to convince someone else to join our side. If we just say, well, I think that gay marriage is wrong because that's the way I was brought up. Well, that's not really good enough. You have to give reasons, okay? And that goes for anything. If you thought gay marriage was wrong, if you think it's right, if you think that all news media is bad, if you think it's all good, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. You have to have a reason to think the way that you think. You can't just be like, well, this is what my mom and dad think, or this is what my husband thinks, or my wife thinks, or my sister, or my grandpa, or my great Aunt Sue, whatever. You can't do that. You have to have a reason that you think this way. And do your homework. For research essays especially, you're going to have to do some research to understand both sides of the argument. So you can't do research without giving credit and citing sources. We'll get into that more when we get to your research essay. But you do need to understand both sides of the argument before you're just like, hey, this is how it should be. And then you put in your or. So what you're putting in your or means is that you're going in, you're working. You're working with all these other people who, you can't see me, but I'm doing an or motion right now. You're working with all these other people who think and believe the way that you do. You're putting in your or with them to try and win this race against other people who don't think the way that you do. So that's what thinking and writing rhetorically is. entering a larger conversation. You have to understand that when you write anything, you are entering a larger conversation. There have already been people who have written about this, and you are entering into that. So you're responding to everyone who's ever written or thought about this. That goes for your Facebook statuses, for papers that you write, for your tweets, your Instagram posts, goes for all of it. You're entering into a larger conversation. So when you put in your or, you have to think, how do you want to come across to your audience? You don't want to come across as a jerk, right? You want to represent yourself as knowledgeable and credible. And you need to show respect for both your audience and for the people whose work and thinking you engage with. So those people who you've read their research or you've read what they have to say, you have to show respect for them. And you have to show that you have your audience's best interests at heart. So you have to do it in a nice, respectful way. You can't just, call everybody geeks or idiots and expect that everything's going to be chill. That's not going to work. You catch more flies with honey, right? So we got to think about that when we're writing rhetorically. So rhetorical situation. So what is a rhetorical situation? Well, it's tweeting in response to a news article. It's making a Facebook post condemning a government decision, or texting a friend about a party the night before. A rhetorical situation is anything where you are responding to something that has happened to you and your group of people, be it your group based on religion, sex, gender, sexual orientation, anything, race, anything that affects your niche of people, your friends, your family, your dog's family, right? Anything that affects that group that you consider part of your, to use the term tribe, family, whatever you want to call it. Anything that affects that, your response to it is a rhetorical situation. So anything that has a purpose, audience, stance, genre, medium, and or design and exists in a larger context happens within a rhetorical situation. So if what you're saying has a purpose, which everything does, if it has an audience, which everything does, stance, which means argument, which everything does, genre, when I say genre, I'm not talking about like horror or comedy. I mean like narrative, which is a story, or research, that kind of genre. Medium means like print or picture or what have you. And it exists in a larger context, which everything does, right? Everything has a purpose. Everything has an audience. It all exists in this larger context. Anytime we do something, we are entering a larger conversation. So we don't just write and talk in this bubble. It's everything we put out there into the world. So just keep that in mind. That's what a rhetorical situation is. So when you're writing in a rhetorical situation, you have to think about your genre. So have you been assigned a specific genre, which you will be? And it's going to require certain organization. Your tone should always be formal. And we'll talk about that more as we get into our different genres, which are narrative, review, and research/argumentative. By the way, if you can hear my dog, which you can now, he's in the room. I apologize. Audience, you have to think about who your intended audience is. So how are members of the audience like and unlike you? So this is really important if you're making a Facebook post or you're writing a story for a newspaper. And for this class, you need to think that I'm not the only one who's going to be reading your papers. Your classmates will also be reading your papers. So you need to keep that in mind when you're writing about whatever it is that you're going to write about. You have to make your audience interested in what you're talking about. I used to have a professor who said that he wished that he could take a pen and draw a line where he got bored in our essays and just stop reading. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want your audience to feel that way. More importantly, we don't want me to feel that way because I'm the important one, right? Right. Good answer. So we want to keep them interested. We want to hook them in and show them we know what we're talking about and keep them interested all the way through. How much does your audience know about your topic? Generally, you want to assume that you're writing for a general audience. They have, a pretty good education, but they're not exactly experts in the field. So you want to keep it simple enough that the general population can understand. How would you describe your own motivation for writing? What is your primary goal? Every piece of writing that you do, from a text to a Facebook post to a tweet to an Instagram post to writing a paper, has a goal and a purpose. That's what this is about. You have to think about your goal and your purpose every time you're writing. Same thing with stance. That's just your opinion about the topic. So your purpose is what you want to do with the topic. Your stance is how you feel about your topic. Okay, so that's what it means to write and think rhetorically. It just means that you're entering this larger conversation and you want to be cognizant of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And you want to present yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about to persuade these other people that you're talking to think like you. So let's talk about the writing process. The writing process is something that we're going to use for every single paper we write. So there are 4 steps in the writing process: pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and proofreading. So pre-writing is the first stage, okay? This is where you sort of generate ideas for your essay. I like to call it word vomit. So there are several ways you can pre-write. Free writing, which is basically you set a timer on your phone and you say 5 minutes, okay? And you write your topic down on the top of your paper, or you type it out on the top of your page, and you just write about that topic, whatever you think about it, for 5 minutes. And then you stop and you're like, okay, this is what I wrote. All right, this is what my essay is going to be about. Brainstorming, kind of the same thing, except it's free writing is like full, complete sentences. Brainstorming is just sort of like listing. And branching is, no, not the words I meant. Branching is like this. So your central point is berry picking. Talk about the hazards over here. Here's some of the hazards. Talk about getting there, how some ways you can get there. That's what branching is. Word web. Those were the words I was looking for. It's a word web. So free writing, brainstorming, and branching, otherwise known as a word web. You can use all 3 of those in your pre-writing process. And the thing about pre-writing is that you can do it any way that works best for you. So if you're good at free writing, you can free write. If you want to draw a picture, you can draw a picture. If you want to do the word web, you can do the word web. If you want to turn on a recording app on your phone and just talk to your phone, just sort of get all the ideas out there, that's all pre-writing is. Pre-writing is for you. It's not for me. It's not for anybody else. Pre-writing is for you. It's to get all your ideas into a cohesive little bubble so that you can work with it. After you pre-write, so free writing occurs when you pick a topic and write about the topic for a set amount of time without stopping. There you go. Keep writing until your time is up. Brainstorming occurs when you choose a topic and make a list of everything that comes to mind about the topic. Take out a piece of paper, write your topic at the top of the paper, list everything that comes to mind about topic. So you don't have to use complete sentences, just use short phrases. Branching, I showed you a picture of that. This tells you how to branch. So in the middle of your paper, draw a circle. Inside the circle, write your topic. Draw several lines off your circle, and then write the points that you will discuss in each body paragraph on each of the lines that you drew, and then branch off of those into your points. This can help. I like to branch. I also like to make a outline. Oh, if I could spell, I'd be dangerous. So I like to make an outline. So I like to put my title here, introduction, then I'll write out my thesis statement, and then I'll do body paragraph 1, and I'll write my topic sentence, and then each of the points that I'm going to talk about in that essay. That's how I do it. Like I said, you can pre-write any way that you want to, any way that makes sense to you. As long as it helps you, that's all I'm worried about. Step 2 is drafting. So this is when you take that pre-write that you've just done and you make it into an essay. There's really not much more to say about that. You take the pre-write that you've done and you make it into an essay. And we're going to talk about MLA format and all that good stuff next week. Okay, stage 3 is revising. So this is where you make sure your essay sounds like you want it to sound. You don't need to worry about grammar yet. Make sure you have enough details. Make sure your argument is clear. Everything's organized correctly. The best thing to do with this is to read your essay out loud. Call somebody or read it to somebody and be like, okay, do you get my point? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the best way to do that. Or copy and paste it into Google Translate or any other software and have it read it back to you so that you can be like, okay, does that make sense? Sometimes what happens when we do things like that or we just read it to ourselves is that our brain knows what we're trying to say, so it just fills in those blanks. If you read it out loud or hear it read back to you, you catch those blanks more easily. And you're able to be like, oh, I missed a point here. Or, oh, this doesn't make sense. And that'll help you. Proofreading and editing. This is where you correct all the grammar stuff. The run-on sentences, comma errors, sentence fragments, all of that stuff. So you revise, make sure it makes sense, and then you come back and proofread it and make sure all your grammar errors are taken care of. So here's some pre-writing and drafting tips. When you're pre-writing and drafting, don't worry too much about grammar, spelling, and punctuation. When you're pre-writing, don't worry about organization. That comes later. And then on your first draft, don't expect it to be perfect the first time. It won't be. And the thing is that you don't necessarily have to be a good writer to do well in this class, but you have to be a good editor. You have to be good at noticing those things and being like, oh, that doesn't make sense, and being able to fix it. Okay? Proofreading tips. Read your essay out loud or have someone read it to you. Read your essay backwards, one sentence at a time, and review once for each type of error. So go through once looking for commas, go through again looking for run-on sentences, go through again looking for sentence fragments, so on and so forth. Especially if you know you have trouble with a particular thing. So if you tend to write in run-on sentences, definitely read through a couple of times looking just for run-on sentences. Now going all the way back. So in this drafting, or in this revising, editing, and proofreading stage, you will be sharing your essay with me and your classmates. So after you have pre-written and drafted up a rough draft, you're going to send me that rough draft. I haven't figured out if I'm going to do that through Blackboard or through email yet. And what's going to happen is I'm going to read your rough draft and make some suggestions and corrections and send it back to you. While I'm doing that, at least one other classmate of yours is going to be doing the same thing. So you're going to read at least one other person's essay. You're going to read through it looking for, making sure it makes sense, making sure they have a strong argument, making sure their thesis statement and topic sentence is good, which we're going to talk about thesis statements and topic sentences at some point. You're looking for all of that stuff, and you're helping them make it better. So we're going to be doing that during the revising and editing portion, and then once we do that, then you'll turn in your fully done essay. And we'll go over how to proofread and edit someone's essay. We'll go over all of that when we get to that part. Let me look. So next week is MLA, and then we do the narrative essay. So on week 6 is when we're going to do peer reviews of the narrative essay. So I will show you in week 6 how to, we'll probably practice peer reviewing next week, but I will show you how I want you to do and submit your peer reviews in week 6. So we'll talk about that then. But peer reviewing, I'll give you a list of questions that you have to answer about the person's paper. And you always want to look for grammar stuff when you're peer reviewing somebody's paper. You're just helping them. You're trying to help them make their paper better. And there is a grade for this. Okay, so, and don't just say, oh, your paper's great. It's wonderful. It's perfect. No. Help them. I do this because it works. It helps you understand grammar and technical errors. It helps you understand how to write better. And it helps the other person as well. So please, please, please put some effort into it when you peer review. So that is rhetoric and the writing process. Don't forget, write a short paragraph about what rhetoric is and what it means to write and think rhetorically. Give an example of using rhetoric in your everyday life. And that's just a discussion post. Again, for those of you in just Comp 1, which is English 63W, this is extra credit. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. For those of you who are in English 16A and 37A, this is your homework for the comp review portion of the class, so you have to do it. And you're going to get credit for it in your comp review shell. Okay? So if you have questions, comments, concerns, interpretive dance, any of the above, you can call me, text me, or email me. Texting is probably better than calling me, honestly, because, you know, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I have a day job. So a lot of times I can't pick up the phone when you call. So texting or emailing is probably better. You can, of course, text me and say, hey, this is so-and-so. Can you call me when you get a minute? And I'll probably text you back and say, yeah, I'll call you around this time. Okay? So, what else? I think that's it. Okay. If you have questions, comments, concerns, interpretive dance, let me know. I will help you as best as I can. We're making it, guys. We're in week 3 and we're making it. I hope everybody's doing well in your other classes. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and you're being kind to one another. So good luck out there, guys. Enjoy your long weekend. If you have questions, let me know. I'm always here for you. Okay? All right. I will talk with all of you soon.